So here's just a few myths that have popped up on my feed on Instagram, and I wanted to clarify a couple of things with them. We're not going to dive fully into it, so if you have remaining questions, please feel free to reach out, but I just wanted to touch on these really briefly. Okay, so this one is a pretty hot topic, right? Baby walkers. Some families love them. It is thought that about 50% of infants and babies use baby walkers at some point. However, research is showing that babies that use baby walkers do have a delay in their developmental milestones. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually strongly advises against using baby walkers. At one point, like right around, I think 1999 or 1998, they actually recommended the ban of such items in the United States. This is due to both injury and delay of development. So the PT in me and the mom in me knows that a lot of my families are going to be using baby walkers. They're very, very common. Again, I said earlier about 50% of families supposedly use baby walkers for their infants and babies. I would consider stationary activity centers, playpens, and more just supervised floor time for your baby to naturally develop these skills and these strengths. However, if you're going to be using these devices, there are specific requirements or recommendations for setup. So for instance, a stationary activity center, you want your baby's feet to be flat on the floor and them to have a little bit of a bend in their knees, because otherwise you're teaching them the motor planning of being on their toes when they're in standing. We don't want that. So things like that. So if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me. Next myth that I want to discuss is standing makes your baby bow-legged. That is not true. If your baby is naturally trying to get up into standing, so say they're just young for the milestone, but they're pulling to stand at 7 months, and someone's like, oh, that's going to give them bow-legged. It's not going to. I would not worry about that. Babies are built to bear weight when they are able to bear weight, okay? So I wouldn't be forcing your baby to stand, but I doubt many of you are doing that. So if your baby's trying to pull to stand at 7.5 months, try not to worry, that's okay. Okay, so the next myth is that toe walking means autism. That is just simply not true. We do see toe walking often in kiddos that have autism. However, it does not mean that your kid has autism. Many kids toe walk at least temporarily or in specific situations. So for instance, it's really common for kids to go up onto their toes when they initially start running, or when they are on a surface that they are not accustomed to, they might go up onto their toes. There's numerous reasons. They could be extra ticklish or extra sensitive. So it does not mean that your kid has autism. However, if you have a concern, please get your child evaluated. This myth is a huge topic. Babies do not have a set age for a milestone, okay? But each milestone has a range, okay? So if your kid is on the early end, great. If they're on the late end, they're not behind. If you're wondering the different ranges for milestones and the average age, here is a chart for reference. If your child is outside of that and you have any questions or concerns, again, feel free to reach out or contact their pediatrician and see about getting an in-person evaluation. All right, so this myth is your child needs to be sitting before they can start solids. That's not true either. Your child does not need to be independently sitting before they start solids. They need to be sitting with control when supported. Okay, so whether that is in a chair supported, on your lap supported, whatever it might be, if your child can sit competently with assistance. If you have questions and concerns about your child's safety starting solids, I want you to reach out to someone that can individually assess. But by and large, if your kiddo is sitting well with support, they can start solids.